Good morning, guys, and welcome back to Dusting Off Warlord, Saga of the Storm, featuring Trevaine Cartwright. Very minor spoiler, I guess. This is actually Logan Ebonwolf in disguise. I don't really remember why he was in disguise. I want to say it had something to do with Black Tom and the Thieves Guild. Again, I'm not really sure. Logan Ebonwolf was the first warlord, the first Free Kingdoms warlord ever made, all the way back in pre-Saga of the Storm. I don't know if I can find an image of this online, but back when he had the cute little 3 hit points on the bottom instead of a 3 hit point dot in the corner. Very, in my opinion, a very underwhelming warlord, even back then. Like, I compare this guy to Robert, and obviously, I've said before, Robert's my favorite warlord, but stats are just kind of meh, the abilities kind of meh. Actually, this doesn't even have skill on it. I didn't realize that until just now, yeah. Now, Logan did get reprinted in 4th edition, and he got a very nice upgrade with his range strike ability. He kind of has Logan's longbow built into him, which I did quite like that. But he was mostly a defensive warlord for, I guess. His ability was mostly a support ability. And when he went undercover, he very different character. Trevaine is, in my opinion, he is the most aggressive rogue warlord in the game. And he is in the running, I think. He's probably in the top 5 for just most aggressive warlords, regardless of class. So, Trevaine has 3 melee strikes. I believe he might be the only rogue warlord with 3 strikes. At +6, +4, +1, 16 armor class, +8 skill, and 3 hit points. In addition to having 3 melee strikes, he also has riposte +5, so he's potentially generating 4 melee strikes just off of that. Your other Free Kingdoms characters in this rank have a riposte +5 and +2 AC. So not only is he buffing your other freaks, he's giving them riposte, so even more melee strikes. And if that wasn't enough, he has this interesting react. After another character misses with a melee strike, discard a card, perform a melee strike. Like, this dude went and trained with Chuck Norris or something like that, because again, the amount of melee strikes this guy can generate it's kind of crazy. In addition, his react, this is a very interesting react. It does not require, there's a lot of things. This doesn't require it to be one of your guys missing. It doesn't require it to be one of their guys missing. It just has to be someone who is not Cartwright missing. And the strike doesn't have to go after who missed, or it can go wherever you want it to. Like, this guy's nuts and I love him. So yeah, very aggressive warlord. He doesn't really do much when he's in any rank other than rank 1. I guess he does give the AC bonus, but no, that's not why you're playing him. You're playing him to go up front and freaking punch the crap out of stuff. So to do that, we are starting. One of the problems I have, it's very similar to the issue with Deveranians. Most of my freak starts are 1 copy of Bakbo and Bala and 1 copy of Borg and Ferris, and that's exactly what we're doing here because we need this guy to get launched up to the front, and these guys they're not necessarily the best, but for what I'm doing, I think I don't really know what I'd ever replace these with Cartwright. And then in rank 1, we've got 3 copies of Hayden Riss. This guy is already just a really solid starter as it is. He's got 13 armor class. He's got a react that when people make strikes that miss him, your Free Kingdoms characters in this rank get +2 attack and armor class until the end of the turn. From what I understand, that I believe that bonus sticks around even when he's dead, like if he gets killed later on, and it will apply to characters that enter play after he's used it. Again, if memory serves, I probably should have researched this before I started making these claims. The reason why I really like this guy, because if you really want to make sure Trevaine makes it to the front, you can start Jas and Fret instead, and yeah, she can, you can Bakbo and switch and put Trevaine into rank 2, and then if they won't kill your Giasons because they don't want him moving, you could have them punch, and if one of them misses, Cartwright can use his react and kill one of them yourself. It's so weird. But the reason why I really like Hayden Riss in this deck is it's kind of odd. Once Cartwright makes it into the same rank as these, they get more difficult to hit, meaning their react is more likely to go off. They'll also have repost at that point. So I've found that a lot of people, let me rephrase that, the people in my tiny little play group, because they don't want to have to try to hit these at AC 15, they will forfeit doing other things to try to hit these before Cartwright gets here, and I found that it kind of makes their react go off more often, because again, sometimes people will be like, I'm not swinging at these with Brine Fiends, I'm not swinging at them with Sturges, any low attack guys, I'm just going to wait until the people who can reliably hit these go up there. But with Cartwright, a lot of times people don't want to do that, because they're like, well, then they're going to have repost, Cartwright himself will start getting the AC buff, so I really need to kill these before he's in position. And that in my opinion, it's in my experience, it leads to situations where they're going off at times where they normally wouldn't. So, but perfectly able to start to the frets instead. Very funny how that works together. But yeah, so that's what we are starting with. As far as characters go, so we have 3 copies of Driga and 3 copies of Court and Lie. These characters came out of what was it, Death's Bargain? I'm pretty sure it's Death's Bargain. Yeah. These characters, Driga gives you +3 attack if you're next to her, and Court and Lie gives you +2 armor class if you're next to him. But they both also give +1 to the relevant stat while they're in your discard pile. So if you discard these to Cartwright's ability, you'll still be getting some kind of buff out of it. It is better for them to be in play most of the time because the buff is bigger. But Cartwright does not have particularly good attacks. His first one's good. +4 and +1, not so much. So any little bit of help he gets is nice. And yeah, those are, they're characters, but they're almost like little utility pieces too, like not really fighting characters. Although Court and Lie, actually, you know, AC 16, well, he's gonna play AC 16 with a repost +5. He needs an 8, but it's not bad. But the bulk of the support that Cartwright's gonna get is from other rogues. And so what I'm doing right now is we've got 3 copies of Garant the Grin. This guy is another, he's very strange. So he's got 3 attacks also, like Cartwright. His attacks are kind of crappy at +2, +1, +1. He has repost built in, and his total bonus by himself is +10. So with Cartwright, I think he needs, what is that, a 5 he has to roll in order to make it. So his odds of reposting are good. The reason why I actually quite like this guy is he has this react. It says once per turn after Garant targets, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Geraint, whatever his name is, the Grin. After he targets a melee strike, you may remove from the game an item of level 6 or lower, equipped to the target of the strike. If you do, he permanently gets +2 attack. Now, the attack buff is nice, and you can use this to get rid of some fairly mundane things like Bruntor's Helm, Improvised Shield. But really, because this can target level 6 items, this can get rid of Nodwick. And so if someone is using Nodwick with Potion of Blurring or Nodwick with Improvised Shield, this removes it from the game. There's no check required, and he just has to be making a melee strike. Or he has to target a melee strike. And because it's removed from the game, the dwarves can't supply it back. They can't use, rogues can't use things like, Cloak of Many Things to get it back. So I quite like him for that. If you're not really too worried about Nodwicks or level 6 items, you can replace that with a lot of things. Dustin St. Gulick, I think I used to run before, Garant, just, if they try to remove your items, you know, you can make extra melee strikes. Zagru Mubala is also, I think, potentially good, because he does potentially have 3 strikes, and his strikes are not really crappy ones like Garant's are. I am interested to try, I think her name is pronounced Agnes S, or something like this, Agnes. She's a rogue that came out in 4th edition, towards the end of 4th edition. I didn't even know she existed until pretty recently, and shout out to my bro Alex Egbert for hooking me up with some of those, so I'm excited to give those a run. We also have 3 copies of Runa. So Runa, he's a bard, he's also chosen, but that doesn't really matter. He's got charisma, which is kind of nice. Your level 1 characters get +2 attack. Now, I don't really have much in this deck to take advantage of that. It's pretty much just the Haydens. But he has this really cool, I think this ability is really cool. Once per turn, if he's in your front rank, target warlord or hero must succeed with a magic save, DC 14, or suffer a wound and become spent. So the things about this ability that I think are make it noteworthy are, 1, there's no range requirement on this. He does need to be in the front, but once he's there, it doesn't matter where they are, he can attempt to do this. DC 14 is not especially high, but a lot of the fighting type, the Kruns and the Euthanax, you know, they need 7s, so that's not a terrible odds of failure, and it's not just wounding them, it's also spending them, and again, you really don't want to be spent around rogues. He's also a bard, which that'll be somewhat important later. As far as the other fighting guys go, we're running it out with 1 copy of Han of the Fairy. This guy came out of the treasure chest. His stats are nothing amazing. He's a bard. He's a lycanthrope. He also has built-in repost, just like just like who was it? Just like Garrett does. Um, he has this ability where other free kingdoms in a rank with one or more Han get +2 to all dice rolls. So this kind of helps shore up how crappy some of Cartwright's successive attacks are, but this also helps you make your saves and helps everybody make their repost checks. So I think you could probably run more than one of these. I'm just running one because they don't stack together, and I'm kind of tight on space in this. Um, as far as other support characters go, we have a copy of a Barton of Lear. This guy came out in the champion set with Trevaine. Really, this should probably be an Ada instead, but I like this, so I'm going to play it. He just has a very simple ability once per turn. After a target character misses or is missed by a melee strike, the target adds +3 to all rolls until the end of the turn. Kind of like Han, this will affect your skill checks. It'll affect your attack rolls, most notably. So I think he's kind of an interesting character. We also have 3 copies of Temple of Lore. Now the temple is unique, and it can cause some issues with your ranks because this deck is not super amazing at rank building. I'm okay running 3 copies of these, even though I can only play one of them, because if I draw more than one, it just becomes a melee strike with Trevaine. And +5 is a lot, especially because you really need Trevaine in the front, so you need all the defense you can get. You can also, one of the things that's really nice in Freaks that you can do with the Temple is Bakbo and Bala, it doesn't need to be a Free Kingdoms character that he's moving. So if your first action is to move Bakbo to rank 3, switching with Trevaine, next turn or whenever you're able to, you can move the temple into rank 3, and if they don't have a way to get it, they might actually have to try to kill Cartwright with his his +5 bonus from that. So I think that's pretty interesting. We also have a copy of Gren Vin. This is more stat buffing. This is probably not very good, but again, I like it. I think I like it because there was one game I was playing, and this is okay. So very very random. I was playing a game with a friend of mine, and basically, I want to say he dropped something crazy. I don't think it was Wyvern. I think it was that level 6. I think it's Jartek. It was some high level Nothrog, and I hit him, I killed him, and I Gren Vind it, and I have never forgotten that moment. It was freaking awesome. Again, I'm pretty sure it was a +6 bonus I got to all my stats. Probably better off as almost anything, but I don't care because I'm still gonna run it. I like it. And then rounding it out, we have one copy of, I don't even know how to say this guy's name, Okpara Lembois. Okpara Lembois. So this is a monk that came out in, assuming Southern Kingdoms, yeah. He can remain spent during the ready phase, and if your warlord is a freak, you can spend him, and he increases your hand size by 1, as long as he stays in that state. Normally when I run this guy, I run him alongside Garth Drac to get +2 to my hand size, because I really like doing that. I think it's kind of cool. I'm not doing Garth Drac in here again because the ranks thing it's kind of questionable, but +1 card is I think kind of important for Trevaine because he's going to be tossing a lot of cards to his, hopefully he's tossing a lot of cards to his ability. So even just getting one, I mean, it's nice. And if you can't play him, you can just make him into a melee strike. So whatever. As far as items go, now normally most of my warlords, I have, I think I kind of highlighted this in several videos, Joden, Zoltan Bloodletter. Most of my item builds, because I don't really want to draw dead cards, and because I don't have anything I specifically need large amounts of, like I need this one item. Typically, I do kind of just a one weapon, one armor, one shield, one helm, one of all the things. But because Cartwright is really really narrow in what he's able to do, because you really need him in front and you really need him to do damage. Instead, I'm running 3 copies of a bunch of things. We have 3 copies of Armor of Blending. This gives you stealth and it gives you +4 armor class. If you've moved, this gives you no AC bonus, but you still can attempt to make the stealth checks. I am a big fan of this armor, but if you don't like this, you can replace this. If you still want stealth and some armor class, you can replace this with Spider Vestments, and it's probably around the same. If you just want the armor class and you don't care about the stealth, you're going to get it through some other means. You can replace this with Cloak of Protection, which is a classless treasure that came out way long ago. But that's +4 armor class there. We also have 3 copies of Black Steel Dagger as the weapon. So this weapon basically makes it so that all of your melee strikes have backstabs built into them. Really, really good actually, I think this is just an incredible item all around. If you have a way to make them punch you, like make them make attacks on you, this can be devastating. I don't think I really have that in here, but everything I have said in this video and other videos about not wanting to be spent around rogues, this is a very, very solid reason why. It does kind of suck that this doesn't really do much if they're not spent. But I mean, reality check. If they're not spending to do anything, like you're probably okay just because. You can replace this. There's a couple things I quite like with Trevaine. Dancing Scimitar is a weapon that I mentioned in Joden. Even though it's a 7th level fighter item, it's also a level 5 rogue item. Your melee strikes can't be canceled. It gives you +3 attack, which is better if they're not spent compared to the Black Steel Dagger. But this has the react once per turn after a melee strike. After a melee strike roll against this character, a gain +3 AC for the duration of the strike. This happens after they roll, and again, if they miss, it causes a strike from Trevaine. So really like this, but I think ultimately the Black Steel Dagger is probably better. I'm also a big fan of Whirling Swamp Spear. I've just never been able to get this to work. It should work. I'm not very good at this game, but this is a weapon that came out in 4th edition. It's a weapon and a shield. It gives you +2 attack, +1 armor class. React, after this rogue performs a melee strike that killed, perform a +2 range strike. This is a water action and a spell. So because it's a spell, they can use magic resistance to cancel that. But because it's also a spell, it ignores planar, and I freaking hate planar. But with the amounts of melee strikes that Cartwright is making, if you get him parked up next to an archer tower, like, you could potentially do a lot of shooting with this. So I really like it. I've never been able to make it work. But I think it's an option. As far as steeds go, my normal go-to steed for rogues that want to go to the front is Cloud Racer, because you can spend it to move and you can discard a card to move. I'm actually not going to do that here because I'm already discarding cards to too many things. Instead, we're going to run 3 copies of Garm. This is a steed that came out of... is this counterattack? Yeah, it's counterattack. It moves you forward or backwards, it gives you repost, and it gives you armor class. It is level 7. The other items that I've mentioned so far, these are pretty much all level 6. And one of the reasons why I'm okay running all of these items is because I have all those other rogues as backup, and so I can equip these onto them, assuming I draw them in time. These can all, again, become melee strikes, but I don't think I would normally run this much stuff if I didn't have other characters to equip it, because then I run the risk of, not just this can become a melee strike, that's all it's going to do is become a melee strike. So yeah, we've got those 9 items there just to hand out to all the rogues. Again, Cartwright is pretty much first priority, but we have a couple other things too here. We have a copy of Imperial Amulet. This works very, very similarly to Dancing Scimitar. It still only works on melee strikes. The bonus is much bigger. It's +5 instead of +3. But this doesn't take up any kind of item slot. It's not a weapon, so... And it gives you a +1 armor class, so what's not to love? We got a copy of Medical Kit because, hopefully speaking... Now, normally, Medical Kit is one of those cards where a lot of times I don't really think it does a terribly large amount. It kind of delays the inevitable. But because Cartwright is able to kill things as quickly as he can because he's swinging so many times, and because again you're trying to buff his stats up, kind of like the build decks, the Zods and the Fate Seekers, I think this does work with him. So gonna run a copy of that. We had a copy of Black Sand Trap. You can replace this with pretty much anything else. I just play this because it doesn't I'll read it. It's a trap. After target character targets a character in this rank with a melee strike, spend and stun Black Sand Trap. The target must succeed with a dexterity save, DC 15 or 20 if it's a dwarf, or suffer a wound and become stunned. I'm mostly running this because they don't have to be targeting Cartwright with their strikes. So if they're, say you get him up to the front and say they're like, Cartwright's too hard to hit, I'm going to go punch something else. You can use this and it doesn't have to involve Cartwright. So I do like that. That can be a springing spear trap, or it can be a whole bunch of other stuff. But and then I mentioned Bard as being somewhat important. That's because we're running a copy of Horn of Battle, which is Bard only. This just gives everyone else but the person holding it in the rank +2 attack and armor class. So you can give this to Ruma, or you can give this to Hana the Fairy, and it'll give a buff to Cartwright, which is nice. So I like that. And again, you can use it as a melee strike. As far as actions go, I'm doing 3 copies of Too Fast to See. Now, Cartwright is the only person who can use this. If you don't like that, you can replace that with Fancy Footwork, or you can replace it with Dodge if you want to. Just something that helps your guys stay alive. The reason I like Too Fast to See is because it's a guaranteed failure, but it's also after the dice roll. So if they're making their power attack check, or they're removing charges off of the altar, or they're doing all this stuff, and it looks like it's going to work. Too Fast to See basically trumps most of those things. So, and again, if they just get lucky, I mean, it's nice. We're also doing 3 copies of Zaina's Treachery. This card is just more melee strikes, but it's kind of like repost before they swing at you. You also get to throw on a bunch of items, like any items you can legally equip, you can throw on. And so it can be. It's happened to me before, and not even just in Cartwright, but anytime you're looking at a rogue and he looks like you might be able to hit him, and then he plays Zaina's Treachery, and then he puts a black steel dagger on and like assassinates you. It can be tilting. It's hilarious, but this is also level 4, so the other characters can play it. Unfortunately, they can't really throw too much on, I don't think, in this deck. But they can still make the melee strike. And even if they don't have any items, we're running 3 copies of Backstab. And so they can pretty much all of them can play the Backstab. Kind of like the Too Fast to See in your options. You can replace these with Assassinations if you want, and that does make it Cartwright only, but it guarantees the hit. I'm playing these mostly because, again, the other rogues can play this. And you may notice, this is not just focused on Cartwright. He's, of course, the star of the show, but you have all these other characters because he does good stuff for them. And, yeah. Rounding it out, I have 2 copies of Meat at the end. This really should be 3 copies of this. I should probably drop, like, the Gren Vin and replace it with 1 more copy of Meat at the end, because this deck is so card-starved. You want to play all this stuff, but you also want to be punching, so, yeah. That's what we're doing at the moment. I think I've been playing him, like, in this general form for quite a while. What I used to do, and I think this is a very, very viable way to play him, too, is find a way to work in Brother Domini, because Brother Domini is freaking fantastic. Now, the problem is I don't really have any fighters in this deck outside of Court and Lie. Now, what you can do is you can just run fighters and kind of give up on all the extra items that I'm running. But you can also instead run multi-class fighter rogues, and then that way you still have rogues to play things like the Backstab and throw on some of the equipment, but they'll still count as fighters so that Domini can hand his bonus out. I think that's a thing. You can also try to run the Martyr's Hide. Now, this armor is really, really solid, in my opinion. It gives you +3 armor class, -1 attack, nobody cares. It gives you defend, it gives you repost, and you can make defend and repost checks as often as you want to. Yeah, if you're really focused on getting this onto Cartwright, you can run. There's several things you can run to make sure you can equip this, even if you're not in the ideal spot. Yeah, I want mine in the front as soon as possible. I don't want to spend time trying to make sure I can get this on, but very, very good, in my opinion. There's also just a slew of other actions. In a lot of the decks where I'm running the just one of every item, I do like running Inheritance because this lets me get very specific things. I don't think it's as important in this deck because, again, my items are so redundant, at least the important ones, that I don't really think this is necessary, but it is an option. You can also run stuff like Alert to ready yourself. I mean, that could be a bad time if Cartwright's all decked out and then he also gets to ready and swing again. Ooh, it's good stuff. But you got, basically, you got Boomerang, you got Submerge. I'm a big fan of Quick and Deadly. I don't know if this is necessary in this deck. This just says, during a melee strike by this rogue, after the target performs a react, cancel the react. I think this is a little bit better when you don't have his quantity of melee strikes. Like, say you're going for instead of all these swings, you're going for the Backstab with double assassination, with freaking Vorpal Blade or whatever on, and you don't want them canceling it somehow. I'm not doing that here, so I don't know if this is really all that good in this deck, but I think it's a good card altogether. And then there's cards like Slash and Lunge, Submerge, just plenty of just other plenty of other cards you can run with him. If I'm sounding jittery, I'm really excited about this. I love this guy. This guy is freaking awesome. He just keeps swinging. He lets everybody else swing extra times, and I think, actually, this was one of the first real gear checks that we had. Because none of us really played competitively. We mostly just played to have fun. But even just playing to have fun, this guy can be brutal. Like, if you're playing Krun, because I'm a big Nothric fan, and I love me some Krun, yeah, this can be rough to play into. Like, all Krun does is punch people, and when you start punching around Cartwright, bad things tend to happen to you. So, yeah. That's Trevaine Cartwright there. So hopefully you guys found this enjoyable, informative, entertaining. Yeah. Thanks for checking it out. God bless you, and I will catch you in the next video.
Cartwright?